Robert Gowan, Mentors for Military, sitting here with my sidekick, Paul Martinez.
Hey, everybody.
We are sitting live at 15 Perry Street and appreciate these guys allowing us to do the podcast taping here. And we're sitting with Jeff Morris, who is joining us from Indianapolis, who flew all the way here to sit down and talk about his book, which I can't wait to get into, Legion Rising. But let's first start off at the very beginning, and that is, you happen to be from a very similar, at least geographical region from where I'm from. I grew up probably, I don't know, what would you say, about 45 minutes away, I think it is, from Destin, Florida. So tell us a little bit about that. What got you there at Destin?
Yeah, so I was born in Alabama, and we moved down to Destin. I guess I was 3, almost 4. Don't really remember much of Alabama. But yeah, man, you know, when you grow up there, I think you and I were touching on it earlier, you don't realize how nice it is. You know, it doesn't register that, hey, there's a reason why everybody pays money to come vacation here. You know, this is home. But now I laugh. Like when I go back now, I'm the grumpy old get off my lawn guy. Like, you know, I remember you could drive down Highway 98 and, you know, you could see the beach, and now there's damn condos everywhere. But,
yeah, totally.
Yep.
And you remember, Destin used to be a sleepy little fishing village, too. Even when I got stationed at Fort Benning in 1990, I remember you could leave out of the Destin Recreation Center, which was on the bay side, and get on 98, and somebody told us about a restaurant that had just opened up called Fuddpuckers at the time frame. And so we got in the car, and we're driving. I'm like, where the hell is this damn thing, you know? And we keep driving, and all of a sudden, out amongst all the woods and everything is this, you know, restaurant. And so we pull in there, and we eat. Fast forward, you know, multiple years later, we didn't eat there again, but as the community began to grow from that time period, I think it was probably, I don't know, 10 years, about the time frame when they built the little overpass that cut through the backside.
The Midway Bridge.
Yeah. And I don't know when that was. Was that around 2000 or so?
Yeah, it was a little before that.
We could not find Fuddpuckers. So we'd leave out the Destin Recreation Center, same path, go through there. There's so much that had been built up. It was just that it was not woods anymore. Yep. It was just other shopping plazas and centers and restaurants and stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
the growth is crazy.
I mean, I go back to, I guess we got there in 1978 or so, and literally remember there being one stoplight in town.
Yes,
and there was a McDonald's there. And when we got a Burger King, we thought we were a major
highfalutin, as we used to say.
And then Taco Bell came in after that, and it's just wild. But yeah, you're talking about that stretch out from Destin out towards Sandestin now. Yeah. I mean, I remember that was one lane. No one ever went out that way.
30A, there was nothing
nothing out there. And now, I mean, it is gridlock traffic.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
I can't even stay in Destin. I can remember, as strange as this may sound to some of the listeners, it was probably, I don't know, maybe 12, 13 years ago. Our family was looking at taking a trip down to Destin, and as I started looking at the cost of lodging for 7 days to stay in a place in Destin, I went back and I told him, I go, listen, guys, I've got free miles on Delta because I fly all the damn time. So why don't we use my miles? I can fly all of us, 6 of us, adults, round trip, first class to Hawaii, to the Big Island, Oahu, and then to the Big Island, and then back home. We could stay for 10 days for cheaper than going 7 days to Destin. They were like, let's do it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And it is crazy. I mean, how they price that down there is ridiculous.
And yet it gets more and more crowded
every day.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, my God, yeah. So, I mean, so many great memories, I'm sure, of growing up in that area. But in reading your book, I found it kind of interesting because we both grew up in a community that was very much military. You've got Air Force, you've got Navy, you know, the Army is down there as well. And yet one of the people I think you found as a role model was a SEAL, someone that you tell us a little bit about that, at least.
Yes, it was one of my buddies growing up. His dad had been a part of the first SEAL teams in Vietnam. And again, you know, this is pre-internet. I mean, all you know is the Charlie Sheen movie and the Dick Marcinko books back then. You know, but everyone knew, you know, that Mr. Pete was a SEAL, and he never talked about it. But he was just wild stories you would hear about this guy, man. Like, you know, he was a lawyer at the time, but he had been a police officer before that. He had roamed the Middle East, you know, for a couple of years before that. He had been a SEAL before that. He was just this cool dude that we all wanted to be like Mr. Pete. So me and his son, who's a good buddy of mine, we kind of had this bro pack of we were going to go off and be SEALs together, and went to different colleges. We both played ball at different colleges, and he unfortunately had some injuries and wasn't able to pursue that path. And as fate would have it, I kind of had a similar experience with me, albeit a slightly different.
Yeah.
But, it was just a cool guy to look up to. And then from him, he introduced me to some other really cool people. I felt cool when the book came back from the Pentagon. Like, one name had to be redacted because I didn't have his permission, because I couldn't get in touch with him anymore. But he was a pretty big influence. He had been one of the original SEAL Team 6 guys and kind of took me under his wing, as a young kid. So,
wow. Yeah,
it was pretty wild.
You didn't grow up in, well, I guess it's in that area down there. Let me first kind of tee it up. It's if you get away from the beach and you get away from, the touristy aspect of it, it's a very rural, and I would say middle class, lower middle class is more like it, or lower community. And so you grew up in a very, rough childhood.
Yeah, we lived in Destin, but you're absolutely right. People, heck, my wife now, the first time she went down there was shocked when she realized that, 30 minutes from the beach, I'm in the backwoods country. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't realize that. And, but yeah, so while we lived in, I guess the way I equate it to people is, you see all these nice, restaurants and hotels, and, there's a lot of rich people that own those. Well, there's a lot of, poor people who have to work at those things and do the menial jobs that a lot of people don't want to do. But yeah, that was, again, as a kid, you don't realize that that's not normal. That's just kind of how life is. That, mom has my parents split when I was pretty early. We got down there, my mom would have a day job, then come home and,
single mother.
Yeah. Sometimes she'd be there to, make dinner for us. Sometimes she would have to go to the second job, and, there we are, 6, 7, 8 years old, making dinner for ourselves, fried bologna sandwiches. And, the apartment security guard would come by and check on us to make sure that we got to bed on time while she cocktail waitress. And, then she'd come in some nights, fast forward a couple of years, had to pick up a third job, and would come in and, wake us up at 1, 2 in the morning, throw us in the car, go deliver the Destin log 2 nights a week, and we'd roll the newspapers up in the back and, hand them up to her. She would throw them out the window. But yeah, that's what we knew, man. To me, it was a regular childhood. I knew, we didn't have some of the nice things that some of my friends had, but, it was a good childhood.
Yeah. Now, fast forward, though, as you end up getting into the age of when you started looking at the military service, you wanted to go be a SEAL because of the influence that those individuals had. And maybe the movie, too, but,
Oh, of course, yeah.
It's a good movie.
Hey, anyone who says otherwise is lying.
Yeah. I know so many who actually have been on this show, and that was their influence.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah,
whether they end up going to the Army or not, that was their influence.
Yeah. Yeah, that was part of it. And there was always just sort of this, I always knew that, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I grew up, but I just knew I wanted more than what I had.
Yeah.
And a couple of different trains of thought. One was, federal law enforcement. Another big influence was Silence of the Lambs. I saw that movie. And
that was an influence for you.
It was because I just thought the whole FBI profiler thing was so cool.
Oh, gotcha.
And so I was like, all right, what's the best way to get into federal law enforcement? And, well, there's a military aspect. They love hiring veterans from what I was told back then, or law school. And, the military, from the movies, everything we've discussed already, the influence is my buddy's dad. I was kind of naturally drawn to that, the challenge. Then I had this other side of me that was kind of being a little more pragmatic and like, well, if I go get a law degree, then, I had this other backup plan.
And you were playing sports at the time frame.
Yeah. So,
you were looking for the scholarship and the whole thing at that time frame.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird deal. I played baseball my whole life. And then right before my senior year of high school, a friend of mine who had been on me for a couple of years said, you should come out and play football, man. You're fast. So I finally took his advice, and good thing I'm a pretty smart guy. Is a guy named Danny Werfel, who everyone's probably heard
Get out of here.
Won the Heisman Trophy. Yeah,
Danny's your buddy.
Yeah, we don't talk much anymore. It's been a year. We check in once a year or so. But yeah, we were close friends growing up, and awesome guy. I tell people whenever it comes up that oftentimes you see people like that, and you end up meeting them, or you find out some story, and they're like, oh, he's not quite as good of a guy as we thought he was. And Danny is everything that you see and hear and more.
Yeah.
He's just an incredible man.
Now, Danny's father was Air Force.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's how he ended up there. He got there when we were in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out, and, when you got a future Heisman Trophy winner as your quarterback, and we had a receiver who went on to, for a period of time, was Florida State's all-time leading receiver, a guy named E.G. Green.
Yeah, I remember him as well.
Yeah, so we had quite the team of the 22 guys that started the state championship game. I think 18 played Division I or 1A or 1AA is what, at the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, from that I had some opportunities. That's how I ended up at Samford and was able to go up there and play ball. And one of the reasons I picked Samford was they had a great law school there, Cumberland School of Law.
Okay.
So there was always this, military or law school, and I'm like, I'll figure it out when I'm in college which way I'm going to go.
A lot of the people that come from that area are kind of, well, at least for me, it was much the same way, and I think 60% of my class ended up going into the military. So I guess I could safely assume that all of us probably thought the same thing. It's either you're going the college route or you're going into the military, and there really wasn't an in-between. I mean, there was a limited number of people, like I mentioned, that stayed there, but for the most part, you were leaving some way out of there. Mm-hmm. Troy, which is where I ended up graduating, is where a lot of people end up going, or Samford. And it's funny because, the Panhandle is right in lower Alabama, right there. It's, matter of fact, I joke on the podcast on occasion that the Alabama got kind of the raw end of the deal because the way the state is not able to get access except for around Gulf Shores and Mobile, to the beach. They lost some prime real estate, in that area. But some people end up going to those smaller Alabama schools because they're close enough nearby, and that was the case for you, for Samford.
Yeah, it was 4 hours from home, so close enough, but not so far away. Yeah, I mean, it just the football aspect and the law school aspect. That's what really drew me there, and ultimately, as you read, I sat down to take the LSAT, and I had done all the practice tests, and by all accounts, and I get it, their practice, I had done pretty well on them, and I literally just remember I had to drive over to Tallahassee for it, and I remember sitting in the room and just, like, at that moment right there, I'm like, I don't want to do this. If I don't go try the other deal, I can always come back and try this later, but if I don't try this now, I'll always wonder what if. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up doing terrible on the LSAT. I was completely unmotivated and got my score. And it was like, well, even if I wanted to go, that's probably, end up at some online law school with that score. But I was, and then life happened and I wasn't able to pursue the military dream.
So what happened next?
Graduated, was very naive, not having come from a military family. And this is going to sound dumb, but I thought I'd walk into the Navy recruiter's office, say, hey, I'm a guy, I played college football, I'm in shape, I made good grades, I want to be a Navy SEAL officer, you're welcome, type deal. And instead, they looked at me and basically are like, buddy, you got no chance in the world. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And they're like, well, okay, we'll try it out. So they were pretty upfront with me that, this, again, pre-9/11, so this was late 90s. And they're like, they probably take maybe, based off the year, 8 to 12 SEAL officer slots. I may be making those numbers up, but I just remember it was a real low number. And he said the majority of those are going to come from guys from the academy, and the others are going to be guys who are enlisted, who already have their trident and are going the officer route. So, that pretty much makes you like a 1 in a million, i.e. it's not going to happen chance. But I was 22, 10-foot and bulletproof, so I'm going to try it out. And they were like, buddy, just enlist. Just, just go in. If you look like you're in good shape, just do it, then go to the officer route later. And again, in hindsight, I could say I should have done that. But if I would have done that, then these other things, that happened later on down the road wouldn't have. But again, it was ignorance on my part. I didn't understand that. I thought since I had a degree that I had to go, I could only be an officer.
Yeah.
Because again, I had no one in my life to teach me this stuff, and the internet, again, it's not like it is. It was coming around. So it sounds, silly, but that was it. So yeah, I tried it, did well, and on the fitness test and all my scores, had some great recommendation letters.
But wait, let's back up.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
I want to get into, you're sitting there, and when I was reading this book, I was, I don't know, I could visualize a lot of this having grown up in the same area, but you're going out to try to kill yourself before you go and take the exam, the physical exam. Your idea was, and the reason why I want to cover this is because often we get asked, what is it going to take to get through selection? How should I prepare physically? All these different questions that get asked. And the thing is just, in a lot of cases, just show up. Mm-hmm. Just be yourself, be real. So you didn't have all of that, podcasts and everything that you could listen to. But you had this idea that I better be in the best damn shape, and I know that SEALs, they're in the water, so I'm gonna be out in the water. I've seen, the movies and the photos and everything of having to lay in the with the water rushing over you in the sand and everything, and the whole. So because when I was reading this, I was busting out laughing, visualizing you going through this. So you got to share it. Because you killed yourself.
So, thank you for bringing this up, by the way. Everybody's like, I've gotten a lot of really humbling feedback from the book, but I've gotten more feedback about this part of the book.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was on the beach when I was reading it, too, by the way. We just talked about.
Yeah. So, and again, some of this is, and you got to understand how I was wired. Coming from the situation that I came from, nothing ever came easy for me. And a lot of people, even when I got off to Sanford, everybody, oh, you grew up in Destin, Florida, it's,
right.
And then playing football, and I was a defensive back, and, you can write a pretty short book on white defensive backs out there. And so there was always just I had to work harder and earn respect and credibility. And again, what life experience had taught me, the hard way was always ended up being the right way for me. And so I had read somewhere that, outside of the cold water, out at Coronado at Bud's, that, that's miserable, the lack of sleep, being cold and wet all the time. But one of the things that really gets people is you're in the water, you're in the sand, you're in the water, you're in the sand, and you just get chafed unbelievably bad. And having been a baseball player growing up, I still got calluses on the inside of my arms from, head first slides. And it's everybody always talked about, well, you do it enough, you'll get enough strawberries, you'll build up a callus, and it won't hurt anymore after that. So in dumb 22-year-old Jeff's mind, the same thing should apply to my inner thighs.
This is amazing. This is my favorite news story.
So, man, it gets better.
Oh, yeah. So there's a couple of guys, heck, you may have had some of them on there. We can talk about it off air later, but former SEAL, I shared this with him one day, and he stopped everything, went and got every former SEAL Ranger that worked for him at the security company. He's like, you guys got to get in here and hear this.
You got to hear this.
Yeah. So I would go out swimming in the Gulf, and I'd usually try to go out, in the winter months when it was cooler out there to try to adjust to the cold water, and then I would go back on the beach, and I would just pick up a couple of handfuls of, white sand and just throw it down my pants and rub it all on my inner thighs. And I would go run a couple of miles and then get back in the water, then do it again. And I would come home and just all kind of tore up, put some Neosporin on it, let it kind of scab up for a few days and get back out and do it again. So
that's amazing.
I never got the callus, first of all. But
that was my next question. Did it work?
No. And so where this all kind of came to a head is when I took my SEAL fitness test. My buddy's dad worked it out to where I got to go do it with the SEAL liaison out at Herbal Field, and I didn't have to go to a Navy base and do it with 300 other dudes. So this guy shows up, man, and he is straight cast from a movie. Rolls in his CJ7 Jeep, no doors on it, short brown shorts, black shirt, sweet stash, probably 6'3", 6'4", just looks the part, and I'm scared shitless. So he just walks up and is like, all right, son, you ready to get started? I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, don't call me sir, I work for a living, and gives me that whole deal. So I'm already nervous. So he tells me the standards. That's really all we talk. So I go out, do the test. I kill it. I'd been training so hard, and we get done, and he's like, all right, buddy, kind of opens up. He's like, obviously you're in good shape, but being in good shape is only half of what what else are you doing to prepare yourself mentally for Buds if and when you get a chance to be there? This is my moment, someone who's going to appreciate the misery that I have put myself through, who this will resonate. Everybody who calls me an idiot, all my friends and my parents. So I'm like, well, actually, Chief, I hear that chafing is a big thing. And, so here's what I've been doing. And I get to the point where I'm like, so I throw sand down my pants and rub it. And then I start, and he just goes, throws his hand up. Right here in front of my face and goes, stop. What did you say? So, as at this point, I'm nervous. So I'm like, well, I put sand down my pants so I can build up. And he's just stopped. He goes, buddy, son, that is the dumbest fucking thing I have ever heard of in my life. That is like practicing getting kicked in the nuts. it's going to suck every single time. So let me give you a little bit of advice, buddy. If it doesn't make sense, don't do it. And so completely deflated, I walk away, but, I laugh, and trust me, no one makes fun of themselves more than I do about that. But I tell you, man, that life lesson stayed with me, not just, in training in the business world, but I can't tell you how many times, would be in a situation in Baghdad down the road, and you would kind of have that tactical pause to kind of assess the situation of what's going on. And one of the first questions that always went through my mind was, does this make sense of what we're about to do? So not only did he humiliate me, but taught me a hell of a life lesson.
And you didn't make it.
Didn't make it. They didn't pick me. They called me, said, hey, just like we said, you didn't make it this year. So I'm like, all right, I'll try it again next year. And then that's when, throughout this process, I'd been having some shoulder problems. And so ended up finally went and got it looked at. And the doctor went in, scoped, talked to the Navy recruiters. They're like, yeah, an arthroscopic surgery, heal up from that. You'll still have a chance, albeit probably not going to happen in buds. You should really try something else. But I'm like, no, I'm going to keep doing it. And so he went in, scoped it. That was in April of 2000. And we got done. He's like, man, it was a lot worse. When I got in there, I could see everything. You got a lot of degeneration in your AC joint. So let's try this out. But I have a feeling we're going to have to go in and do something bigger. And sure enough, they did. So they went back in and had to do reconstructive surgery a few months later. And not only the Navy. So at that point, I went next door and talked to the Marines and talked to the Army. And basically everybody said, with an injury like that, you don't have a chance in the military. So good luck in life.
How did you take that? I mean, after the point of like building up to where you want to be on SEALs to now you can't even get in.
Initially it was pretty crushing, as you can imagine. That was the life plan. It was also right about the time that I met what is now my ex-wife, and so like any new blossoming relationship, everything was great. So I kind of looked at that as, maybe this was a sign that maybe I was supposed to go on a different path. And so left Florida, moved out to the Dallas-Fort Worth area with her, began a career, got promoted quick. So there was still that side of me that, man, could I have done it? I'm always going to wonder what if type deal. But at least at that period in life, I felt like these other things had come into play that, kind of maybe meant that I was supposed to be going in a different direction.
Mm-hmm. And you started making the best out of that. I mean, I think you eventually embraced that. And like you said, you started thriving. Is it around this time frame, too, that your son was born?
No, that was several years later.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't recall the timeline of it. So 9/11 happens. And how did you feel during that time frame, with everything that was going on and the situation that you were in?
Well, it was pretty wild. So about a month before, it was early August of 2001, the job I was at, I had to go fill in at a different store. And there was another guy there working with me that day who had come from a different store and very similar backgrounds, had both wanted to be in the military. He wanted to be a Ranger. That was his big deal. And I wanted to be a SEAL. He had his reasons why it didn't work out. I had mine. And then he asked me, he's like, have you read Black Hawk Down? And I'm like, no, I've heard about it, but I haven't read it. He's like, oh, dude, you got to get it. So on the way home from work that day, I picked it up, started reading it a week or two later, finished it, and like just reading that, man, just kind of like lit the match again. And, I was a year removed from surgery at this point, and just that things were going so well with work, but I still, like, in the back of my mind, it was that, I will always wonder what if. Mm-hmm. And so I went to Chrissy one night and just said, you're going to kill me. We're finally now. And I got myself so crazy in debt. I'm like, we're finally making some money. You can dig out of this hole that I got us in. But I kind of wanted to try the military one more time. Would you support that? And she had come from a military family, Air Force. And she said, yeah, absolutely. But, we're in a pretty good spot. Let's don't make any rash decisions. Let's think about it. And not to be over dramatic, but that conversation took place on a Tuesday. And the next Tuesday was September 11th. And then 2 days after that, I was in the recruiter's office.
Yeah. So how did that conversation go this time around after having the second surgery, knowing that you had to face the fear there of going down to the MEPS?
Actually, that was I was nervous about it.
Yeah.
And so here's something funny. So the Navy, we'll back up. Destin, Florida. Mm-hmm. You brought it up, little fishing village.
Yep.
The city slogan is Destin, Florida, world's luckiest seafood fishing village. and I'm allergic to all seafood, fish and shellfish. The Navy had no issue with that, but I couldn't get in because of my shoulder. So the Army, like, they clear my shoulder right off the bat. I get down to MEPS, then they medically disqualify me for the seafood allergy.
Get out of here.
So define irony, you know, the Navy water, yeah, we got no problem with this. The Army land, hey, you're allergic to seafood, we can't take you. So yeah, so that's what, gosh, it was 6 months. I had to go and get some waivers, and it wasn't an anaphylactic or anything reaction.
Yeah.
But anyways, I guess it took me finding an allergist who had been in the Army, who I guess knew how to write the stuff up, because the first couple of doctor stuff I sent in, they wouldn't take. But yeah, he took care of that for me.
Now, did you want to go into special operations at that time frame, since you had wanted to go the SEAL route? I'm sure everybody's listening going, okay, well then, you know, he just read Black Hawk Down, you know, he's always wanted to be a SEAL.
To me, it can't, again, you know, a couple more years under my belt, a little bit more wisdom, and it came down to a couple of things. I wanted to go the special ops route. I now realize that the SEAL route was probably not the best way. Looking at what was going on in Afghanistan, and again, we weren't even in Iraq at this point. Kind of thought, something probably more land related. So it really came down to the Marines or Army, and the Army was the only one that I could get combat arms guaranteed. So I knew, in going in as an officer, usually you don't get your branch until you're halfway. At least the route that I took through OCS, you don't find out your branch. You put your wish list, not until halfway through OCS, and it's kind of needs of the Army. I had a heck of a recruiter, which unfortunately a lot of people can't say. There is a small provision that you could get one of the 3 combat arms branches if you did X, Y, and Z beforehand. And he did it. He took care of it. So I got a letter from Infantry branch there at Benning. So it was part of my packet when I went to.
He didn't try to talk you going into enlisted? I can't tell you how many guys I tried to convince go enlisted, even if they had a 4-year degree, because it was a different credit. You didn't get the same credit, if you end up going into being an officer. No,
he didn't. He, it came up. One of the things that he said, one of the things I like about you is you're a little bit older. Now, again, keep in mind, I was 28 years old about to go in to basic training. So I think just having a little bit of life experience, he felt would maybe set me up for success a little bit better.
Yeah. So you go off to OCS, you end up completing that, then you go off to the basic course?
Yeah, so basic training, then OCS, and then had a break before the infantry officer basic course. I did airborne then IOBC, and finished that up in September of 2000.
Shoulder bother you in airborne school or anything with the?
No, I didn't have any issues there. Actually, I take that back. That shoulder didn't. We had a pretty windy. Our last jump was pretty windy. A lot of guys got hurt that day, and ended up hurting the other shoulder. Which, fast forward 6-8 years down the road, had surgery on that one, probably because of a fall that day. But yeah, no physical issues. Wasn't until I went off to Ranger School and. You got a story or you got a tab, and I got my story from hurting my knee there.
Hurting your knee. Tell us about it.
Land nav. So insert officer joke here. It was probably I laugh. So like in IOBC, even in OCS, like I would go out and I was a drifter when I just was out, especially at night. So it was either, get 3 of 8 points or get 8 of 8 in 2 hours. Like there was, it was one extreme to the other. But yeah, no, this was literally, it was first night of Land Nav or Ranger School, walking to my very first point and just pitch black and stepped on a log or something wrong and felt the knee buckle and, just got it out, limped through it, and just in a lot of pain. And needless to say, failed that night. I just couldn't get around that good. And so they were like, all right, we can see you're gimping around pretty good, but can you get through it? You need to drop. And it's the whole, are you injured or are you hurt type deal? And I'm like, no, I think I can get through it. So I did. I got the 2-mile buddy run done the next couple of days, the water stuff, and then it came down for the retake of Land Nav, and the next day was the road march. And I just went out there and, I tried, but it reached a point that I'm like, I may be doing something worse by staying out here. So instead of, it was funny, one of the RIs, they're not supposed to talk to you. He came out and just basically said, he saw me limping around, and give the guy credit. He said, he's like, you think you can make it? And I was like, well, I think so. I can try. He's like, you don't look like looking at you, I don't think you got much of a shot right now, and there's no way you're going to make the road march tomorrow. He said, if you pass this and somehow make it to the road march, you're going to get recycled and going to have to go get fixed. Then you're stuck out here with us. He's like, if you fail today, he's like, then you get to go back to the IOBC, you get to go back, stay a little bit nicer quarters, probably have, not that you won't get good medical care out here, just life may be a little better. If you really did something wrong, he's like, if I were you, I'd rather be there than stuck out here rehabbing. So yeah, that's what I did.
And you never got a chance to go back though.
I didn't. I always thought I would. At that point,
is there a regret or a thing that pops in your head occasionally about that?
Yeah, the thing that it's you never want to be that guy. I mean, there is the again, you got a story, you got a tab, and I hate being on that side of it. And I own the shit out of that. You won't hear me come up with one excuse. I thought go off, do my PL time, come back, get a shot to go back. I'll knock it out then, and then at that point, the end goal had always been to go into SF. But come back, do Ranger School, then go to selection. And, so I had surgery. That happened in October when I got hurt. I guess it was early November. Had surgery in January. And I was hoping to get another shot at Ranger School then. But at that point, the way it was at IOBC headquarters, if you had orders to a unit that was deploying in the next 12 months, you were going. There was no retry at Ranger School. So the fact that I was going to Hood, to Cav, they were set to deploy there that spring. So they were like, nope, no go. So rehab, as soon as your knees, you get the, blessed off on, then you're off to Hood.
How was it arriving at Hood?
Everybody as an entry, looking at you. Well, I got there, the unit was pretty much gone already. So
they were already forward. Okay, I couldn't remember.
So they had, for the most part, they had already deployed, and so just in process with all the other newbies.
Yeah.
And then 3 weeks later, it was on a plane to Iraq.
New officer arriving at a unit, especially in combat arms. Again, you've either got a tab or a story, and you're arriving over there in a combat situation. How did the unit, when you walked in, how did they accept you?
They were great. You're the FNG, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
And I didn't help that. Being the FNG and the dumb new officer, I walked into an air conditioning vent one day. This E5, awesome guy, was showing me around, literally giving me a tour of the fob. And I kind of see it out of the corner of my eye, one of the, the window units, and I ducked down, but I ducked down too late. And it's like day 2 on the fob, and I hit my head on it and gashed my head open, have to go in and get stitches. So not only am I the new, the new lieutenant without a tab, I'm now the new lieutenant without a tab who walked into an air conditioning unit and busted his head open. But no, everybody was great, man. They kind of early on, they're like, hey, we're going to send you over. You're probably going to take over, Sec Platoon, Charlie Company 19. We want you to go and shadow these guys, start spending time with them. And, a lot of them were honest, hey, the first question out of the mouth, they introduced me, and he was just like, where's your tab, sir? From one of the E6s. Yeah, fair enough. Again, I owned it with him, but they were great guys, and, I just shadowed them on patrols. I worked in the S2 shop at night, typing reports up, but the unit was great. You kind of had that initial, and also too, at this point, Haifa Street was really starting to ramp up. There'd been plenty of activity before, but like early summer when I was getting there was when the contact was increasing significantly. So I think the guys had more important things to worry about than to make fun of the new officer. It was more so, if this guy is going to be taking over for us, let's make sure we train his ass up right.
Yeah. So you had some good NCOs then. Yeah,
who I ended up not taking over that platoon, ironically. Mm-hmm. Ended up getting sent down to Alpha Company 19, who had been detached to, so Charlie Company was up at Bob.
You were the XO for Charlie Company?
When we came back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so I went down to Alpha Company, who was living in the international zone. Charlie Company was up at Muthana Airfield, which is right off Haifa Street. It was FOB Headhunter, and they changed the name in the interest of hearts and minds to FOB Independence. So that was kind of deflating because up there was where all the action was at. And then Alpha Company, I hadn't met any of these guys, first of all. And then...
How bummed were you about that, though, that you
sucked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sucked. And there's just a lot of things. The company commander at the time down there, what I didn't know, too, is that he was getting ready, it was one of those guys that, and again, I didn't know the guy. I'm basing off what I've heard, but he wasn't a very popular guy around there. And so, in hindsight, again, life a lot of times is what you make of it, and but also just the circumstance you're thrown into. And so in a way, the situation couldn't have played out any better. So I went down to Alpha Company. Little did I know, right as I'm taking over, they're getting a new company commander who was awesome, and learned a ton from that guy, a good friend of mine to this day. And what else was unique is, so we spent a month patrolling the real slow area south of the international zone down around Baghdad University. And the fact that I had spent the month and a half prior to that out on Haifa Street, even though I wasn't in charge or anything or leading men, the fact that I'd been up there, kind of those other guys, all they heard about was, so to me, it's like, wow, the new LT, he's been on Haifa Street. And so fast forward a month, we get the call to go up and start assisting Charlie Company. I was the one guy who had actually been on that road and kind of knew what the terrain looked like and, what the enemy TTPs were and such. So yeah, and at the end, it all came out full circle, and we worked with Charlie Company every day, a lot of joint missions. Like you said, I ended up being the XO and eventually took over that company.
But when you started, this was the time period when you started doing a lot of backup, like you said, for the original unit that you were a part of. There was some pretty heavy stuff that went down.
Yeah, it was, like I said, when people think back to 2004, when the insurgency really kind of kicking into high gear, everyone thinks about Fallujah, of course, and then Sadr City, the big uprising in April of 2004. Was it Najaf down in spring as well, down south of Baghdad. Haifa Street was just there was never one huge, 1 to 2 week campaign, if you want to call it that, there. It was just steady. And then the Fallujah, I guess, call it invasion, we went in November of 2004. We had kind of announced that summer, hey, we're going to go in and clean this place out with all these reinforcements. So Al-Qaeda in Iraq kind of shifted a lot of their presence from Fallujah, and I'm not in any way saying they didn't keep one out there, but they set up a heavy presence on Haifa Street. And so, yeah, it was just constant all the time. And sort of the way it went is they would pay a lot of the local populous young kids, I'm talking 8, 9-year-old kids, to throw grenades at us. And then the Al-Qaeda fighters, they would, every 2 to 3 weeks do a coordinated attack or ambush on us. And so it was kind of the day-to-day harassing stuff, then with the every 2 to 3 week huge sustained 5-6 hour firefight. Probably the biggest, and the one that probably talk about the most in the book, was September 12th when the Bradley was blown up, and then yeah.
Do you want to get into that, or?
Yeah, that was
because that was a mission, wasn't it, where there was some soft guys.
Mm-hmm. So what we would see is we would go out and do our patrols, and again, we're mechanized infantry. You can hear us from 2 damn miles away. We're not sneaking up on anybody. Yeah. And so we would go off and do our missions, and when we would go in, they would hide, and again, for the most part, outside of the big attacks. And then when we would leave, we would get intel, and we had our big J-lens, camera up at the fob, and we would see them come out in the streets, all the Al-Qaeda fighters with their AKs and RPGs, like, oh, look at us, we ran off the mighty Americans. And so we had this idea, somebody came up with it and then we started seeing more soft presence come out and do some missions based off, just intel they were getting of, HVTs in the area. So we were talking to these guys and developed this idea of, well, let's go in and let's, go in 2 companies and, 200, 250 dudes, occupy multiple buildings, and then leave. But when we leave, let's leave back 4 SEAL snipers with a 9-man infantry squad to guard them. And the first time we did it, it worked like a freaking champ, man. These guys came out right down Haifa Street and just started, and I wasn't on this one. I wasn't part of the stay behind crew. We just picked them off, man, just one by one. I think they said they got like 11 guys that day. They just worked. Well, this is the Army. Let's do it again. Let's do it again and do it again. And so, you got to give the enemy credit sometimes. They eventually got wise to what we were doing. And this particular one, again, just time and circumstance, man, of this was going to be the biggest one. We were going to go occupy a building we hadn't done yet. It was the tallest buildings. They're like, well, they won't think to look there. And so I think it was 9 SEALs, and then we had a 9-man squad from the battalion scout platoon was going to stay back with them. And my Alpha Company, our job was to get them in the morning. And so we 3rd platoon was going to run. They were in the lead. They went up, occupied Toledo Square, big, huge intersection right there on Haifa Street, and I forget the crossroad. But they occupied that for security. I was 1st platoon. We had all the SEALs with us, and then we also had all our backpacks. And we had all the SEALs. We had some of them with us, but we were carrying all their extra food and water. So these are these 17-story buildings that we got to throw on our. Only time I ever used my rucksack in actual. Playing Army was carrying a bunch of damn water up 17
for
flights.
SEALs.
Yeah, 17 flights of stairs. Yeah, assholes. Glad it didn't work out. No, anyhow. But and then 2nd platoon was rear of the intersection behind us, and so we dropped them off. And this is probably 4:30 in the morning, and it was supposed to be a 48-hour operation. The other ones were usually like 12-hour operations. This was going to be let's lay low, let's up the criteria for engagement. And so we leave, and when we left, we came under pretty heavy fire. Several RPGs shot at us, which was really unusual that early in the morning, at least on Haifa, without any night vision capabilities. They rarely ever, outside of, chucking a grenade over a wall, they didn't attack us like that. So we kind of knew something was up. And as we're rolling into the FOB, we're told, stop, stay there at the gate, because we were at the QRF, of course, to go back and get them. And they said, don't even come back to the base. Stay at the gate. Something's going down. We'll let you know quick. And then it was go, go, go. And as it turns out, and you find all this stuff in hindsight, so Al-Qaeda in Iraq was going to film a propaganda video that day and had, 50-plus dudes. And right after we left, these guys were up there. And, like, the engagement criteria, I think, had usually been 5. They may have upped it for this mission. I don't know. But, like, literally, I got a video. And, it's probably 100 guys just come rolling out of this mosque, just – file, each side of Haifa Street, walking down, and like, what do we do? They're like, well, if you get some of them together, open up. So they did, and it didn't take long for them to figure out where these guys were. So we get the call, go back in and get them. Or go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah. So we get the call to go back in and get them, and we take the same route in, same approach. 3rd platoon occupying Toledo Square, which was right by that mosque, and we're going to get there, secure the front of the building, help get everybody out. 2nd platoon, guard the intersection behind us. And we pulled up, and I've never seen anything like it. Not to that point, and even after that, I never experienced any kind of combat. Like, it was like the 4th of July, like how many RPGs were shot at 3rd platoon from different directions when they hit Toledo Square. It's like the enemy had every corner occupied, high ground, low ground, and then we got out. They weren't dropping their dismounts at that point. All the guys were in the back. It was just the vehicles. And then we pulled up, and then that's when we started getting guys on the ground. So then all the attention shifted to us. And so usually, I would like hop out of the top hatch and go join the guys on the ground. But there was so much going on that just told the guys to, hey, I'll meet you there when I can. And eventually the situation calmed down. I was able to get down and go meet the men on the ground. And, so at this point, it's just crazy. This is a pretty big area we're covering too on Haifa Street, but a lot of the attention is focused on us because you got Toledo Square, you got Haifa Street, the building we were in, and right behind it was the shanty town, just the mud huts. And so, they're chucking grenades over that. You got people across the street shooting at us, and, we're on the ground floor of this building in the breezeway, kind of the OP just got pillars to take cover behind. And the building next to us it was a 5-story building, I think, maybe 6. The enemy had gotten in there, so kind of had the high ground, and they're just shooting down on us. So, we're really just in a position of, like, let's hold the ground and, like, kind of need other people to help out. The SEALs came down. They were awesome. They were like, hey, where do you need us? You're kind of the command and control guy here. You're talking, we don't know the whole situation, what's going on. Just tell us where to go and let us do our thing. So started putting them on higher floors. And anyhow, so while all this is going on, the loudest freaking explosion ever experienced in my life threw me up against the wall. A V-bid had got in our it got through 2nd platoon and came up, and one of our command vehicles, our Exos Bradley, was parked in the middle, probably 50, 100 yards from where we were at, and just slammed into it. And just amazing, just the power of that. To be that far away and to throw me, that shattered all the glass everywhere. So that happened, and then we that was a whole separate thing. The vehicle caught on fire, and there were guys in there. So some guys from 2nd platoon ran out and ended up pulling the guys out of there. 2 guys got silver stars. They were both put in for Distinguished Service Crosses for jumping on the burning vehicle and pulling them out. So while that's going on, we're still getting engaged. These guys from behind the building, so we start chucking grenades at them to try to get behind it. And one of the scout, that squad that had been left behind with the SEALs, it was actually my grenade. I gave it to him. He turned to throw it. He didn't step out far enough, and it hit the inner lip of the breezeway and rolled back towards us. And everybody's facing out, towards the street. And so he sees it. He's turning, running. I look over, and I see the grenade rolling back, and it was rolling kind of right towards two of my guys who were behind one barrier. And so I ran over and grabbed them, and, lucky or good, just I always say just dumb blind luck, just took a chance. So if I grab him, pull him this side, hopefully the grenade rolls on the other side of that pillar because there's no one there. And fortunately it did. So it detonated. Then it ended up hurting a couple of guys, but relatively minor, except for one of the scouts. It looked very minor, but a piece of shrapnel got in his bloodstream and worked his way up and got lodged in his heart. And so he almost died from it. So then that happened, and then we left, had to get the guys to the cache, because at first we were fine. The guys weren't injured bad. We were just staying on. Then the guys started having issues. We were like, we got to get the hell out of here. So we got to the cache, and then the decision was made. All of Alpha Company was leaving, and Charlie Company was going to come in and relieve us just while the vehicle burned out. There was some sensitive equipment in it. The decision was made higher up to bring in some birds and shoot some Hellfires into it to destroy it. And so they told Charlie Company to stay back. And when they did, all the Iraqis just converged on the vehicle. It was all over the front page of every major website. It was just burning Bradley with the Al-Qaeda, Tawhid and Jihad, the old flag stuck in the barrel, innocents walking around it with AKs. And then it wasn't Al Jazeera. It was another Middle Eastern news agency, had a guy reporting live on there. And then the Hellfires came in and shot it, and he was killed live on air.
Wow.
From it, yeah. You ever Google September 12th, 2004, Haifa Street? There's some wild articles. Some people, Sebastian Younger did a documentary, it was like a couple of years ago, it was The Rise of ISIS, I think is what it was called. And he goes back and talks about that day, and this is him, not me, I'm in no way claiming that, but he goes back and states that that was the day that ISIS was born, because it gave, because the Americans killed so many innocents who were just out protesting, and it gave them this kind of offshoot of Al-Qaeda to Al-Qaeda in Iraq, was Al-Qaeda who wanted to be a little more brutal, and then now they had their, they had their propaganda machine based off of what happened that day. Yeah, it was wild.
Now, when you got back, what was it like? How was the men and as a young commander and lieutenant in that type of situation? What was the feeling after just coming out of that?
And it was awesome. I was tired. We got back. We all just passed out. But it was just this rush of, so we start operating up there in August. The first time we get engaged, we all freeze. We don't react well. The next time we react better. And then, so this was like our first sustained big operation. What we thought before was kind of big, this would end up being big. And while we were far from perfect, the fact that of our platoon, the only injuries we had were basically self-inflicted, and we killed a lot of bad guys, and we all came home. It was we took a lot of pride in that. They're like, when it was funny, one of our privates, kid who didn't talk a whole lot, just got in the Bradley on the way home, and I rode in the back, riding back, and he just looked up and was just like, holy shit, we were on point today. And it just felt good that we did our job and did it right.
Yeah. Now that was the time frame where this unit too, like you said, had always been the guys in the back. Mm-hmm. So this is their day to get up front.
Yep.
And they shine.
Yep.
And I remember reading that aspect of it, and I think that's when they really, solidified and became the team that you had really hoped that they would be as a commander, or as the leader, I should say.
Yeah, I think it definitely added that. There was this element of Charlie Company had been, kind of sustained combat on Haifa Street for several more months than us. So it gave Alpha Company credibility. Yeah. Like, all right, you're one of us now. You're part of the team up here. Let's all go kick ass together.
Yeah. Now you guys came home after that.
Yeah, so at the time we were still staying, came home as in back.
Yeah, back to the States.
Oh, no, shoot, that was August, that was September of 2004. We didn't come back till March of 2005.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I can't remember the sequence of events that happened in, was it your second deployment where?
Second was when things went bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after this deployment, so let's kind of jump ahead a little bit, because when you came back, this was the time frame where that commander that you had so much respect for, I think he was moving on, mm-hmm. right? And you were the XO at that time frame.
Yeah, so it was another. I'm sorry.
But no, I was going to say, and there was an opportunity that you didn't think that you were going to be taking that command either.
No, it was, again, just another unique circumstance, I'll call it. So right off that deployment, 9 months as a platoon leader, come home, they're like, all right, we want you to go be the XO of Charlie Company. It was great. I thought I was going to be a PL there, knew the guys, and had worked with them the last couple of months. So I move over to be the XO of Charlie Company. And then a few months after that, we get sent to, so XO, then 2 months after that is when the Army, or at least CAV, went through this reorganization and went from traditional siloed armored infantry battalions and brigades to these combined arms battalions. And so 1-9 had historically been all, 3rd Brigade had been infantry, the infantry brigade. 1-9 had been infantry battalion. And so 1-9 was reflagging and going out to Fort Bliss. So the three companies, Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie, were getting dispersed between units that were remaining. So Charlie 1-9 went over to 1-8 battalion, and then we had to change our name to Bravo 1-8. And so that's a same group of men, just now under a different name. And then right after that, we got sent to New Orleans for Hurricane Katrina, down there for a couple of weeks. And it's while we were there is when Company Commander Chris Ford, who you're talking about, who was just a stud, awesome guy, was making the decision to leave active duty. And because we had gone to 1-8, that was historically an armor battalion, they had no infantry captains in the queue to take command. And so they asked me, I had basically had my packet for SFA-SN, because that's what I had done that summer right before Katrina. They're like, hey, people are always like, wow, you got command early. I'm like, well, there's no one else. It's not like I did anything right. I was just, by 1 month, I was the senior lieutenant in the battalion. And so they're like, if you'll take command, we'll let you stay in 90 days so you'll get rated. This will maybe help you out with your SF dream. We're starting to get new soldiers in, start training the guys up a little bit. And then when we get a captain, then you go do SF and good luck and, go have a good life. So, yeah, so it was a wild stretch, man. 9 months as a PL, 5 months as an XO, and then I'm taking command, as a young first lieutenant.
I love the morale stuff that you guys did, with when I think it was the mud and everything. So maybe talk about that a little bit. I thought that was a really cool. You could really feel through the book of just how you brought the team together, or the team came together. With the great NCOs that you had that came from the original unit that transferred in and stuff as well, that kind of helped you build that foundation. With all these new guys coming in.
Yeah, it really was. And I've been asked before, like what made us different. It definitely wasn't me. It was just the culmination of, the right collective group of men put together in the right time and circumstance, went through all these experiences together that built just this, unbreakable bond and trust of everything. I mean, it's just day in and day out. I mean, you don't hear about 3 grenades, on the news back here, but the 3 grenades were shown at you. It's a pretty damn big deal. You learn to trust it. Yeah. And, just all the stuff that happened on Haifa. We lost some guys while we were there, none directly under my command, but it just built this incredibly tight, cohesive group. And so when we came back and we reflagged, a lot of people got out of the Army, a lot of people went to different bases, but sort of the same core, call it 50, 60% that was there was the leadership. My first sergeant was like, I started off as an acting commander. He started off as an acting first sergeant. He had been the platoon sergeant for 3rd Platoon, and just the men worship this guy and still do to this day. Awesome dude. And, the E5s, the E6s, and the E5s and E6s that left, we probably didn't miss them as much. We got to keep the ones that we wanted to keep. And So when new guys came in, and this, I think this familiarity and trust with the leadership, that it was something special. And so, the old cheesy motto, work hard, play hard. I mean, we trained our ass off, but we did that. You're referring to, we call it the Legion Squad competition, and it was a chance for some of our younger E5s, like we put them in E6 positions and like go do this competition and some basic skills, PT test, different things, and it drug on probably 6 hours longer than it should have, more than likely from horrible planning on my part. But the culmination of the night was going to be, all right, we're going to have, the ultimate winner is going to be determined, and we didn't tell them this, it's going to be the surprise, is going to be this basically big, huge mud wrestling match. And so I was there 4 or 5 squads or 6, I can't remember exactly. But we knew, we're like, as soon as we say go, they're not going to jump each other. They're going to jump us, and they're going to beat the hell out of us. And so we had taken all the guys that were on profile and sent them out with a bunch of 5-gallon water jugs, and just got this. It was like Point Break style from the movie. They'll put the headlights on. We're all driving up, and it's like made this mud, just pouring water in it. And as soon as they said go, I mean, one squad jumped on me, and
I was going to say, well, back up, because there was one of the officers who had just got a nice new car, and so of course he had told the men that don't get me dirty, because I'm going to have to drive that car home. My wife will be upset, or something of that nature. Yeah. So he stripped butt naked. So. To make sure that,
So a couple of funny things.
Wait,
about
before
that.
Or after the wrestling?
Before.
So his name's Charlie Irwin, and he had been the platoon leader for 3rd Platoon, who actually wasn't with us anymore. He just came out to help out. He had gone over to take over the scout platoon, and Charlie drove out there that night in his wife's new car. Charlie and I are still great friends. Charlie's wife is a doctor, and Charlie's wife, Jamie, has delivered my last 3 children down in Fort Worth. So
okay. Wow.
Just cool little side story to that. But yeah, so Charlie is like, guys, don't jump me. I seriously can't get Jamie's car all dirty.
It's like go over, target.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna jump you first.
And it's like, I wish someone recorded it. I mean, just out of the corner of my eye, they say go, and I just see him to start. And I don't know. I know I'm exaggerating, but it seemed like in under 5 seconds he was butt ass naked. Guys didn't give 0 Fs. They jumped him, and I mean, so we're laughing like I'm on the ground, like my side of my head. I got a guy taking some dirt and rubbing it in my ear, and I look over and I'm like, all I see is Charlie's junk like flopping around because they're rolling him around next to me, and then my first sergeant's like upside down, and they're holding him upside down, like bobbing his head like a damn pile driver in the mud. But it was fun, man. We were covered in mud, and just after a long day, but just stuff like that, I think just really built up the camaraderie that a lot of units wish they had.
Yeah, I could sense that, and it was again that just strong bond of having a good foundation of NCOs, I think, too, and obviously the leaders, the officers as well. But those NCOs wanted to instill that pride and that tradition into a unit, and you can see just by the way the book reads, the way you describe it, of how much that was able to come through. It doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah, no, I was incredibly fortunate. And, myself, Chris Ford, I could go through all the officers. Well, I'll tell you, and we're not saying it to be humble or because it's the right thing you're supposed to say as an officer. I mean, it's really true. Like, we are a product of the men that mentored and trained us. And those were the NCOs that we had the privilege of, air quotes, leading.
Yeah, yeah. So how long was it before you guys end up getting word that you're heading back over?
We found out, so I take command, supposed to be for 3 months. Captain shows up that January, which is about the 3-month mark, and I get the call from my battalion commander to go meet him at the brigade commander's office, and I figure this is hey, thanks for what you did. We got a captain now. Get the heck out of here. And instead, they said that, hey, we have a new guy, but we also have a pretty good idea of when we're deploying and where we're going next, and that it's going to be a pretty rough area. In 1-8, and I don't want to discount anything they went through the first deployment because they did see some action and had some loss, but nothing on the scale of what we had in 1-9. And they said they liked the idea of having, because our core leadership was so, had been together, they're like, we like the idea of having that kind of unit to go and sort of start the deployment all kind of tip of the spear, and while the other guys get up to speed and learn how to work in a combat environment as a collective group. So if you will withdraw your special forces packet. We will let you stay in command and take the unit back to Iraq. And then when you come back, you would have missed the first lieutenant promotable window to go to selection, but we'll write a waiver for you. And that's why the brigade commander was in there. Like, I'll do everything in my power to make sure you get a shot. So it was
But what were you thinking at this exact moment? Because at one side of it, I'm sure you wanted to go, that was your dream at that point, now to go to SFAS, prove your worth there, and yet you're being asked to lead a group of men that you've served with, that you have great confidence in, that this camaraderie that we're talking about here, and being asked by the leadership to take them back into combat.
It was a no-brainer.
Yeah,
It really wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, and this sounds, this is going to sound like the guy talking without a tab who never got a chance at SF, but to have that opportunity for what we went through, to get to experience it again with that group of men, like, no tab is ever going to give me that, that experience in life. And again, I thought I'd be able to try it when I came back, and that's a whole other story.
That's another story.
Yeah.
So you go back, you're walking in there and you realize that, all right, I've got to get these guys ready now because we're headed back over. How was it now the second time around? You said it was this is when shit got really rough. So,
yeah, I mean, just the whole, it could not have been any more different, the fight we were going into. Well, first, it started off in multiple ways, just bad. Like the weekend before we left, we had an alcohol-related incident, lost one of my soldiers. And then as soon as we get there, they announced the surge. And so we get there, we're leaving late October. So you already know you're going to miss Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we get there, announce the surge. You're going to miss 2 Thanksgivings, 2 Christmases. The unit that we're replacing, doing the left seat, right seat rides. And everybody knows that by the end of the second week, when there's only supposed to be a handful of them and mostly us, the new guys riding around, that those guys don't come out. They've done their job, let them stay back. And well, our leadership and the outgoing leadership from the group we were replacing, they're like, no, we're going to do this by the book. And so the engineer company that was with 1-8, it was like the group we're replacing, like I'm telling you, like all but like 8 guys were already back in Kuwait, and they had a handful of guys back, and it was the last mission driving home after resupplying one of the MIT teams. Were hit by an EFP, killed one of our guys from 1-8, one of the engineers. But killed 2 guys from. You're a mile away from the base. Your bags are packed to go get on a plane, to go meet your buddies, and this all happened like the first 2 weeks we're there. So and then with that,
kicking the nuts.
Yeah, man, it was. Again, and while the guy from 1-8 wasn't our guy, it's still like, the shit's real. You've been through it before, but to start off like that was very ominous. And then, whereas before Haifa Street was very targeted operations, go out, hour, 2 hours max. Here, completely different fight. It was 24/7 presence in sector. Rarely ever did I take the group out as a company. Rarely ever did full platoons go out. It was split up, drive around, 8-hour shifts. That part of eastern Baghdad, we were right there on the outskirts of Sadr City. Hadn't seen American forces in a few years, and EFPs weren't new, but EFPs were definitely on the rise, in particular in this predominantly Shia-operated area with a heavy Iranian influence. I laugh about, we weren't supposed to talk about it. We would mention Iran in any kind of after-action report until we were getting, and we were told to redact it. We had no proof, yet we would get mortared at our patrol base and find, writing it in Farsi, from 2006, so, but yeah, the EFPs that was a significant leadership challenge, because, you see the devastation these things can do and you hear about it, and then you turn around and look at your men and say, now I want you to go drive around for 8 hours. That's.
And you didn't have many countermeasures at that point in time either.
No.
We were kind of new to the game.
Yeah, very. I mean, the countermeasure, you'll laugh when I say this, you probably remember it was, we would get the big wooden stake and put the heat little, 4x4 shield in the front of the Humvees or the Bradleys. And that didn't work. Worth the crap.
Yeah.
So, that said, we were engaged a few times. We're hit by a few FPs, none direct, fortunately. And then, it was February timeframe. We had kind of been told that's when, as part of the surge, this is when we left FOB Rustamai and we had to go and live out amongst the people. So we went to, I think it was FOB Warhorse. It's 25 Cav, who was been there before during the big uprising back in 2004. That area, that FOB hadn't seen American forces since the end of that deployment. And so we occupied it. And the locals around us pretty much said, hey, you guys are cool. Stay around this area. Don't go past that street up there. That's where all the Iranians are. That's where all the bad stuff happens. That's where they make all the bombs. Just leave them alone and they'll leave us alone. And it was wild. It was this Iraqi security company who was run by a former CAD guy who was become a good friend of mine. And so he facilitated a lot of this intel for us, through these guys who all these guys admitted they were, Mahdi Army guys back in 2004 fighting the Americans. But they're like, we have a common enemy in these Iranians that are coming in. We don't like them messing in our business. We want to, anyhow, weird shit going on way above my, CIA ended up getting involved and stuff. It was wild stuff there. But sure enough, so we went up past that road. We had to, and got intel. There was cache in this thing, tore the place apart. Turns out it was a mosque, which then gave them And so after that, things escalated incredibly quickly, and that's when it was.
There was air quotes that were used. You can't see.
Yeah,
that.
Sorry. Yeah. Air quotes for the
air quotes.
Air
quotes mosque.
Everything was a mosque after the fact. So, there was a significant escalation in the EFP attacks after that, and unfortunately, kind of the big one and a big focus of why we're sitting here was March 15th when lead vehicle was struck by an EFP and no one was injured actually, and but dismounts got out of the Humvees behind it to go begin recovery operations on it, and they had a secondary, ball bearing, think Claymore style IED designed for troops on the ground, and we know they do it. We looked for it, didn't find it this day. The enemy gets a vote, and that day his vote won, and so it killed 4 of my guys instantly. 2 suffered catastrophic injuries. They were saved and lived temporarily for a few days based off the heroic actions of a young kid who jumped out, and one of the guys was an amputee and got a tourniquet on him. The other guy who was injured, significant wound to his abdomen from the ball bearing. But so then 4 guys one day. Shitty day.
This had an impact on you, a major impact on you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, so many on so many levels. I mean, one of the guys that was killed, of the 4 that was killed instantly, I had him take my place at the last minute because the other platoon we were trying to coordinate with, something had happened and they weren't sure on the plan. So it's like, Arnold, get your ass in here, take my spot. Hey, Sergeant Prater, I got to stay back here and, figure this out with their platoon so they know where to link up with you guys. And so, to have that guilt hanging over you, which, in time, and you can tell yourself even at the time that objectively you make 100 decisions like that every day. And more often than not, those decisions probably either end up with no consequence or more, if anything, usually a positive outcome. But it's the way we as humans are wired. You think about the one where it didn't go well. So there was that, you go into that environment knowing that the chance of loss is going to be there, having been through it before. So no leader has ever said, I hope that I only lose 6 this deployment. You don't want to lose anybody. You want to bring everybody home. That's the goal, but you got to be realistic about it. Now, I don't think anyone ever prepares for 6 in a day.
Yeah.
Whether it was those 4 and the other 2, as spoiler alert, the other 2 died in the subsequent days. And just
which was tough on the whole team, especially you, but it was
just such a painful way to go about it, man. I mean, to lose 4, and the 4 that we lost were, I try to, and I don't want to say make light of it, like, if they went through it, then like, all right, Jeff, pick 10 guys that if you got to lose some, they can come from this pile over here. But like these guys would be the exact opposite. These were like the cream of the crop, the studs. Terry Prater had won the Silver Star first deployment for throwing his body in front of a grenade of one of his soldiers that was injured. He got probably could have medically retired, but fought it to stay in. Knew his wife, his 2 kids. Sergeant Green, Sergeant Brand, Jimmy Arnold. I mean, just Sergeant Green was one of the ones that he made a few more days. Yeah, so you lose 4, but then you got the 2 to hang on to. Sergeant Green, just the life of the company. Sergeant Leitner, our medic. And then you get the call that Sergeant Green died. And so that was on March 18th when we got the call that he had passed in Germany. So then we had the memorial service on March 20th. And, this sucks, as you can imagine. And we get together afterwards. We laugh, we cry, tell stories, and all right, we're going to get back at it tomorrow. Let's do it for our boy, Doc Leitner. You're not going to bounce back right away, but you got a rallying point. And the next day we get a call. Doc Leitner had made it back to the States and he passed from his injuries, and then, all right, you do another memorial service and all right, we got Kuhn, the hero of the day, the guy that kind of, while things didn't work out, kind of set the example of what bravery looks like on the battlefield to go and do what he did. And then, as 2.5 weeks later after that, Kuhn was shot and killed by an enemy sniper. So that stretch from March 15th to early April, man, was just it's tough.
Yeah. You sustained some injuries as well.
I did. I had something from my first deployment. I think what you're referring to is not a combat injury, but as part of during one of those experiences. And I don't be vague on the I mean, it's in the book, but
the impact from that, though, and then coupled with this deployment and what you experienced, I think from my interpretation of reading the book are the 2 things that, it started then causing you to struggle with post-traumatic stress, sure, even traumatic brain injury multiple times, but those experiences.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And the deal with Kuhn was the deal of, you kind of, it's, again, I've said it multiple times. It's not one singular event, but it's all these things that happened, over 2 deployments in this case, over a 3-week stretch, all these things that were going on. And then, had the incident where, I was carrying one of the men in and, head wound, ended up, when I went to clean myself up later to go address the men and give them an update on them, that's when I, reached up and saw I had a cut going across my face and was bleeding a little bit and kind of thinking, what the hell, where'd that come from? And then looked down and I got, chunks of his skull stuck in my hands and realized when I'd wiped the sweat off my face, I had cut myself open. And I bring that up, not for shock value. I bring that up for that was the moment where I literally a shift in kind of me. Mm-hmm. The PTS, whatever phrase people want to call it. For me, it was just an anger and rage and almost not recognizing, now I kept it together in front of the men and when I had a job to do, right. But when I shut the door and was alone, wasn't real proud of the man I was because of the things I was thinking.
It was challenging when you returned back, obviously.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I came back, marriage was on the rocks again. Christy and I had split before, came back this time. We had Cole, our son, before that second deployment. That's one thing we didn't get into is through all this, I left a 3-month-old little boy. And so, yeah. And again, you don't realize it. I mean, you can realize you've been through these experiences that are just kind of, unique. But I was so focused on coming back and being a father, and the best father I could be and being there for the men that I neglected to, I was such a hypocrite because everything I told everybody else not to do are the exact things that I did. And it led to a tough stretch, that day in the bathroom, cut myself open. I always say that was when the 5-year dark period started. 5 years of my life I'll never get back.
And you never ended up going to SFAS.
I was so disenchanted with the military. at that point. And look, now I'm not, that was our mission. You can't, I tell people, you can't have it both ways. You know, Haifa Street was awesome, that deployment. The second deployment, the mission was different. The situation on the battlefield had changed. It was more political. And you know, I'm a junior officer. What the hell say do I have in that? I saw some of the things that I saw going on were things that I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying they weren't things that I wanted to be a part of. And I saw decisions being made at leadership levels above mine that I guarantee you when those guys were lieutenants and captains, they said, when I'm in this job, I'm never going to do shit like that. And then they get in that job one day and they do it. And I didn't want to be a part of that. So I made the decision to resign my commission. Hey, I'm not bitter. I don't want this in any way to come. I loved my time in the military. If the special ops route didn't work out, I was so disenchanted. I didn't have the will to follow through with it at that point.
Yeah, no, I get it. And at this point, I mean, you're still not being able to really deal with those demons, and you end up going out into the private sector and doing quite well. But that was kind of a front. It was a
hell of an actor, man.
I mean, I get it again, but I think that's what a lot of people sometimes see is that side, and they think that you got it together, everything's great.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, it's easy to look at a man or any service member as a resume. And I was talking to a Ranger buddy of mine, guy that we served with, attempted suicide, and we're like, well, look at all the stuff he's done. He's got this great career and beautiful family, and he's got the world in his hand. And my friend was like, that's just his resume, man. Like that's it. And you're taught to act, right? Like you're taught to act in the military.
Yeah. You push these things away, and it's funny, not funny you say that, but you bring that example up. So fast forward a few years, and job company I was at, who I'm actually back with again now, but they knew about some of my experiences. They want to do a profile, on the experiences I went through. Man, sorry.
Right.
For Memorial Day. And so we do, and it's published on the it's a big company, and the intercompany website, cover page, and like all these people out there like, wow, we had no idea you went through stuff like that. And what do you think? Am I going to walk around like your buddy, like, hey, let me tell you all these shitty things that I went through in life, and no, that's not part of my introduction. That was a part of me, and will forever be a part of who I am. But the whole shapes me; it doesn't define me.
Mm-hmm. Yet you still had to deal and confront some of the challenges, and you started getting involved in, introduced to, I guess, CrossFit, which of course was huge. And
so there was enough. I had been in Colorado, and then the split had happened, and Chrissy and Cole stayed back in Austin. So my company was good enough to get me down to Tyler, Texas. Mm-hmm. I had never been to Tyler, had never driven through Tyler. I just knew Tyler was closer than Denver. So when they called and said, hey, we can get you to Tyler, do you want to go check it out? I'm like, no, I'll take it. And got down there, didn't know a soul. And there's still enough there. Like when I talk about this 5-year dark period, it wasn't drugs or alcohol or no thoughts of suicide or anything like that. It was more just, now, I think if I wouldn't have had Cole in my life, we may be singing a different tune. But I always had this beacon out there, to be, even though I knew I wasn't being the man that I was capable of, or, I say I need to do something to get me back to being me. I didn't know what that something was, and I damn sure wasn't taking enough steps to do it, but I had that to kind of keep me on the right path. Mm-hmm. I didn't do a good job in Colorado. I always think back, like Colorado was probably the darkest times, and just like literally go to work, put that act on. Wow, look at Jay, he's got a good job. He's doing this. And like literally go in and just turn the lights off in the house and just sit there and just think about, or turn on sad music or, death metal music to get that rage and anger out. And then beat myself up for the hypocrisy of what I was doing. Then someone would pick up the phone, and man, I was freaking Dr. Phil, man. I said all the right things, but I the mirror thing jacked me up so bad that I struggled to look into a mirror. Like I did everything in my power to not look into a mirror. I mean, I shaved my head. I brushed my teeth in the shower just because if I looked in the mirror, I didn't see me. I saw that image of that cut and that sound he had made, and it just would ruin my day and week. But if somebody else would call me about something, I would like, you got to confront it. You got to deal with it. And I would just get so angry at myself for, again, just being a hypocrite. So get to Tyler, I'm like, all right, I'm going to do better. And so I went and joined a gym and started doing CrossFit. And then I had the case with my mom where, again, I thought I was putting the act on. My mom, who's incredible, saw right through it and just sat me down one day and broke down crying and just told me that it broke her heart that she looked in her baby's eyes and baby looked dead inside, and that it broke her heart that there was nothing she could do to fix it. And she knew it was something I needed to figure out on my own. But she was worried about me. So that led to me going and trying counseling again and really, opening up. And part of that, it needed like to share the story with a group of people. This is after multiple sessions of, kind of me coming to this epiphany of, and I'll never forget it. And, I told the guy kind of everything that had happened, and we got done, and it kind of culminated with the whole, for whatever reason, that whole thing with the cut myself open, it seems to be like the pinnacle of the shit, whatever you want to call it. And I just remember he looked at me and just said, wow, Jeff, Hollywood couldn't make something that messed up. And you have to learn to live with this. You have to learn to accept this. And you have to realize that every day you wake up and only one person, has the ability to choose how you're going to respond to these things that have happened to you in life, and it's you. And so, that message of choice and acceptance just really resonated with me. And so then I went out, and part of it kind of gets the final test was to go and share it with a group of people.
Who were your friends who never served at this time frame, too?
One of them had been a Marine years ago. He'd kill me for saying that because he is a Marine still there. Awesome guy. But so he got it, but just opened up, and I always laugh. It was like
you basically just sat everybody down and just said, I've got something I've got to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, they knew something. Mm-hmm. I mean, I got a bunch of tattoos, and they knew they were, they knew something, but they didn't know the story. And so this night, I always laugh. I'm like, it took me a beer or 8 to get the liquid courage up to start talking. But it was the first time I'd sat down with a group kind of, at one time, and I literally just started talking for like an hour and a half and got done. And from that's where the idea of, the Legion 8 workout, because we always referred to the men as a Legion 8. We've had suicides from the unit since we've been back. We've lost several more. Some other just random crazy deaths, heart attacks, so the, original Legion company, I think up to 19 are gone. So we came up with the idea for the workout. It was supposed to be a one-time deal, and then had a really great turnout for it. It's supposed to be a workout turned into a Saturday morning event where they asked me to talk and kind of share a little bit about the men. And I did. And
that was a very powerful moment. I don't want to just skip over that too, because I think in the book, by the time I got done reading your book, Jeff, I was in tears. And I think there are so many powerful moments through the book where, you can tell how you touched others' lives, and whether that was, you being the image and putting yourself out there, but in the end, it was just being genuine and being you, because you're exposing yourself, and then it became even more powerful to those who, family members and stuff of some of these lost soldiers, some of these 8. So,
yeah, it was, and it wasn't my idea. It was supposed to be a workout. A couple of us do it, take some pictures.
Like the Murph.
Yeah. Yeah, but Murph, every place does. This was supposed to be like me and this core group of people do it. And then the owners of the gym, we asked them if we could come up on a Sunday afternoon and do it. And they were the ones who had the idea to kind of open it up to more people and ask if I would be willing to at least share with people what we're doing. And then someone else said, well, if we're going to have X amount of people there, let's make some T-shirts for it. And then I was worried that I wouldn't do a good job of really explaining, what it was about and the men. And so I made this little video collage of the men. And it's just weird how it all came together. And it was just like we got done, they turned the lights back on, 100 people in a room bawling their eyes out, from this short video on the men. And then, I taught my first sergeant, Orlando Garcia, he was there. Sergeant Green's mom was there. And it was just, I did very little talking. And then it was a couple of years into it when every time I would do this and share these stories about these men, then people would come up and share their experiences with me. And it made me realize that I was very vulnerable in the sense of like how these loss affected me, but I always spoke about the men. And so I felt it was, again, stop being a hypocrite. Everybody's sharing their stuff with you, share some stuff with them. And so that's when I started opening up on a broader, I guess, scale, you could say, about what I went through personally and some of these events that, and how they impacted me and the thoughts. So, and so I think that's when kind of, Legion 8, sort of there was two different paths from there. Like this combined thing sort of went into, Legion 8 is going to go the nonprofit route. And then that's when I was approached about writing the book and kind of, they're mutually, obviously they tie together. The stories are completely intertwined, but one is all about the men. And the other is, while it's my story, it kind of gives me, Legion 8 is focused on these. My story allows me to focus on these two groups of men over 2 deployments and just the incredibly tough times, incredible loss, but also incredible success. How hard it's been since we've been back on some of the guys, but yet how much good we've done as well. And while it's oftentimes told through my voice, I never look at it as I'm the one making an impact in these other people's lives, veterans and non-veterans. That's why the book ends with, together we are Legion, because Linda, Sergeant Green's mom, tells a story and it's in there about, and sorry, I know I'm going on and on here, but you got me on a roll.
It's all right.
But she was at a Gold Star family event and she was talking to this other young woman, and Linda was telling her, and it was a younger girl who had lost her son. And she was telling about her Legion 8 event she had coming up too, because Linda goes to all of them with me. She's incredible. And she's telling her about it, and the lady just started crying. And she was just like, what's wrong? She was like, my boy doesn't have a Legion 8. And that just hit me in a way that, I get it. I always say, like, when people talk about military and podcasts, no one ever Googles. They Google Delta Force, the Rangers, and the soft guys are awesome. I got friends, and those stories are sexy and they're cool, and and that's what I'd want to listen to 20 years ago when I was going through that. But there's so many more stories on the conventional side that haven't been told, and some of it's just numbers. There's just a lot more of us than there are out there, and it's not some thing that I asked for in life. Linda and I talk about all the time, we didn't ask for this platform in life, but life gave it to us. So now what are we going to do with it? And she used to look at it as, it's not just a responsibility, it's an obligation. If in some way my story, which is a story of me and my men, can be representative and be in a way a Legion 8 for others, then I'm going to look for any and every opportunity I can to share that and get the word out.
Legion 8 itself, why is the 8?
The 8 men that we lost over there. So Kuhn was the 7th man that we lost over there. And then Sergeant Caleb Christopher was killed 2 months after that. His vehicle was hit by an EFP. And so, and then since then, like I said, we've had the suicides and the other loss, but Legion 8 is just how that started, but it's, like I said, together we're all Legion.
Mm-hmm. What, a lot of times in this show here, we end up talking about post-traumatic stress and the challenges that veterans have. And trying to deal with some of that. And there's a bad stigma, inside the service. Many people don't want to come forward and talk about it. And it's the same way when they get off active duty. I think it's getting a little bit better, but for a long period of time there, many people would actually come in denial and say, I don't have post-traumatic stress. It's not my, I know guys that do. I don't have it.
I was that guy at first. I think we all were in some way. Somebody had asked me before, they're like, can you, define to me what PTSD is? And my response back to that is, okay, I'll do that as soon as you define to me what normal is.
Yeah, it's good.
Because it's so different for the individual, and it's all relative, and we all have perspective in life, and that perspective is shaped off our own life experiences, and none are better or worse than the others. They're just different, and it's how it impacts that person and the individual. And and that's why I talk obviously a lot about the veteran community, but the non-veteran community as well, because through talking about these things, and PTSD is not exclusive to the military, and tragedy and trauma don't discriminate. They don't just pick us because we wear the uniform. It can happen to anybody. And so I hate it when people, non-veterans, come up to me. I'll do a talk. I'm doing a talk next week, and I guarantee you, I bet you $100, the first person that comes and talks to me afterwards is going to say, well, hey, look, what I went through is nothing compared to what you went through. And that's such bullshit, because it's how it impacts the person. And I think first we have to get over that stigma, or just, it's not a damn competition. It's about finding a way to collectively, be there to support each other. And people need different levels, different types of support from different people. It's not a one size fits all.
I couldn't have said it any better.
No, I think it's crucial to tie in the civilian aspect of it. I mean, and it's refreshing to hear your perspective. And I agree with it. Suffering is suffering. It doesn't matter if it's, you never served at all. But that's how we have to come together. We can't just always look down our nose at civilians because they didn't serve, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Well, you would think that the closest to the military, because a lot of veterans end up going out into the police force and everything. So you would think that there would be a more common ground and commonality there, but there still is a lot of this us and them, and yet they go, and we've talked about this multiple times on the show, they go to the same trauma space a lot, because, when they go to the restaurant with their family, when they, take their kids to school, or when they're, driving to work, they may pass by a lot of these very same scenes, whereas, for veterans, it's 4,000 miles away.
Right. Yeah. And take it a step further of, before you deployed, Paul, how long did you train up for it?
About 7 months.
Yeah. And so you go to most, law enforcement officers, they go to training, and then you get through it, and you're shipped off to do your job, and you may get, what's the follow on, what additional training, refreshing training. It's not going to the range, once a year to get qualified.
Most of them don't have the money.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's funding. Mm-hmm. And so where's the mental aspect of that? I remember them talking to us. We had the guy that wrote on killing come in and talk to us before our second deployment. You're not seeing that out there in the first responder community yet. We expect, because there are hard-earned tax dollars, that that we're going out and they're supposed to be there and perform 100% all the time. I just think it's unrealistic, and that sometimes we're not setting, that community up for success the way we do our military when we send them overseas.
I also like the way, the way you presented it is that there are people who come up to you and say that my experience is nothing like yours. And in some of these cases, or probably most of them, they're civilians who may have just gone through depression, challenging parts of their life that they don't call it PTS, but yet when they hear your story, it takes them to that moment.
Yeah.
And so they know the pain and what you're feeling, but yet they don't want to, again, it's a game of, well, you're on a different scale, or we're measured differently.
Yeah. It's a couple of thoughts on that. So one, I think it's, I think we're all sitting around here, we've all served. We don't see ourselves in that manner, but a lot of people look at us as, they're badasses, tough dudes, tough women. They went out and, I could never do that kind of stuff. And so, to go and stand in front of a room of, a couple hundred people, strangers, and stand up and like be completely open and vulnerable and talk about these things and how they affected me. And, and then to cry in front of those people, I think it like gives them permission, like, man, if he can do it, so can I, type deal. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about doing that is, kind of back to the SOF example and kind of trying to be representative for the conventional, the conventional troops out there is, I think there's a relation sometimes like you see, a Ranger guy, a SEAL guy, a CAG guy, whatever it is, and you hear him on a podcast, and it's awesome, it's cool, but people look at like I could never be that guy. Like they don't relate to him. Like I want to listen to that, but man, I don't have that in me, type deal. But yet you see an average Joe like me sitting in front of you, and you hear these same things that you may hear the same message, but there may be an ability to relate more, almost like the common man, if you want to use that thing. So I think that helps the relation piece, the ability to relate, I should say, as well with the non-veteran community.
What's so odd about that, though, is that, yeah, we have had some serious, what most people would call badasses and stuff sitting across and, on the microphone.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah. Okay. Paul included. And yet none of them, I don't know that maybe I can't say none. Majority of them are so humble.
Yes.
And don't even want to talk about that, but they know if it does good in the community for them to share that story, or at least a part of that, and they get an opportunity to have a platform that we provide for them to talk about something else, then they'll do it, and they'll talk about it. But that's, you kind of touched on the very beginning of the episode. It doesn't necessarily define you. Mm-hmm. It doesn't define me. It doesn't define Paul or any other veteran. It shouldn't. It's a part of our journey, and it's a part of our life of serving and what happened, everything else. And so let's not, to your point too, let's not make it any lesser degree of somebody who serves conventional, somebody who's a mechanic, somebody who is a cook. We all have a role to serve within the military service, and civilians also do. I mean, we've probably all been approached by civilians who come up and say, I wanted to go in, but, and then the story. Yeah. And it's like, dude, you're doing whatever you went and did, your journey. I guarantee you've done a lot. And the fact that you're sharing this stuff with me and talking about the good that you're doing out there in your community, I mean, you did the same thing. It was just a different world.
We just live in this world of comparison. And let me be clear, when I say people don't relate to the soft people, it's not the soft people asking for that. You're right. They're just normal.
I just wanted to clarify that.
No, I mean, they're not the ones trying to put themselves up on this pedestal. It's other people that do it, again, because we like to compare. That's, and I don't know why we have this just inherent nature as humans to do that. But if we could just break down those walls. And
there's so many who ended up going conventional, like those who in civilian side that didn't end up going in the service at all. There are a lot of those guys who are conventional who probably had the same opportunities and could have gone that route if they chose to do it. It's not that they didn't choose. It's just not what their destiny was, where their passion was, what they wanted to do, or whatever. I agree. I think that, and so what we end up doing too is then we start listening to stories, and if you have post-traumatic stress, if you have, a combat story or something, and you were not in special operations for whatever reason, it's just not a qualifier now. It's, it's sort of like the tab, not tab. I looked at you in your uniform, your trophy case. It just wasn't full.
Yeah. It's a perfect example of that is, so with the book, and I had an amazing co-writer who, if I would have done it, it would have taken somebody.
Lauren Mickler.
Yep. So remember that name, big things coming for her down the road. His first book she's ever written was this. Wow. And it is. It's
a very well-written book, and I mean, I was going to end up promoting it more and more as we started wrapping up the show, but Legion Rising, Surviving Combat and Scars It Left Behind, A Soldier's Story, Jeff Morris with Lauren Mickler. And when I read this book, and I've read a lot of books, I got to tell you, it's one of the better written books. If I didn't know it was about your story, it could be a fictional story in which a very well author, who has put out these fictional stories I would have thought that's what it was. Because it was that good and I have the dog-eared. I didn't even get into all these different things, but I had dog-eared through the book all these things that just stood out to me that I wanted to go back and read again. I'm a big reader of like leadership books and stuff, and Paul will tell you I don't always pick up the books and read them and stuff, but I thought, I need to take something on vacation when I'm reading, and or when I'm sitting out there on the beach and I'm not baking in the sun, but I'm baking under the umbrella like we talked about.
Your sexy white legs picture, yes. You said.
That's right. Skinny ones. And
get the picture complete.
It doesn't take much to roast them. So, yeah, I said, let me take the book. And I sat out there and I read this book. And I think I texted you right away and said, I think I read this book in like an hour and a half. Yeah. And I couldn't put the thing down. It is a very well-written book, and I really ask everybody to go out there and check it out and purchase it. I think your story and what you describe in here, we didn't even get into a lot of the depth, and I tried to hit at least enough of the surface so that we can talk about the main topic around post-traumatic stress, but there's so much depth in here and so much that's in here that and then there's even sections in the back of where others have made their comments in letters and their first meeting of you and such. That
got me. She surprised me with that one.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I was reading it when I was thinking,
what is it? It's like letters from your boys?
No, it's from the mother.
Oh, gotcha.
It's just people that have been affected by. So like
gotcha.
One of the guy's moms that lost one of the guy's sisters.
There's a story there.
Yeah.
Of where you were trying to find one of the soldiers, and I won't get into it, but
it's so important to
soldier's family,
work.
I should say. Yeah.
It's so important to do work like this, though. Like we've all watched Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
And those guys were like in their 70s and 80s before they got any recognition for what they did. Mm-hmm. And how much harder were some of those people's lives? Where if they were able to just walk in and say, hey, I was one of the guys in the Battle of the Bulge.
Yeah.
Like I was in this company. Like we did these great things,
Yeah,
sort of like SEALs. They walk in, they're like, you got great hair. Like, I was a SEAL. And then they get the job, you know. But like regular Army guys, Ranger guys, like, what park did you work at?
If you'll allow me, I want to read this poem or this. So this is one of the dog ears that I had pages that I had dog eared and everything. And you wrote, I remembered a poem that a man by the name of Frank Feely sent me during my second deployment. It read, it's titled, It's All in a State of Mind. If you think you're beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you won't. If you like to win, but don't think you can, it's almost a cinch, you won't. If you think you'll lose, you're lost. For out in the world you'll find success begins with a fellow's will. It's all in a state of mind. For many a game is lost, ere even a play is run, and many a coward fails, ere even his work is begun. Think big and your deeds will grow. Think small and you'll fall behind. Think that you can and you will. It's all in a state of mind. If you think you are outlast, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can ever win a prize. Life battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man, but sooner or later the man who wins is the fellow who thinks he can.
And back to, if you want to, and that poem is just so impactful for me throughout these experiences, but it motivates me a lot now, because what we were starting to talk about before the book about again, it sounds like we're picking on the soft community and we're not, but so I was very fortunate. I got a really good agent, which is hard to get an agent these days, and just through a mutual connection. And I don't know why this guy picked me, but he's big time. But he was very honest with me up front. he said, and these are his words, he's similar to you. He's like, Jeff, I've been doing this a long time. This is one of the best books I've read in this space. Now, what we're going to have a struggle with is no one has any idea who the hell you are. And so we took it to the big publishers, and they have their process, and then you ultimately make it to the pub board, and they may have different names for it. And of the big five, I think we made it to the pub board on 4 of them, and everyone had the same response of, awesome book, wasn't a SEAL, wasn't a part of capturing bin Laden, wasn't, and I'm not, it's reality. And they're like, so at that point it was like, it's a great story. We just don't think it'll sell because no one has any idea who this guy is. And so that's why I'm incredibly appreciative of opportunities like this with the platform and scale that you guys have to get out and share the story. And it's not about selling books. I don't make jack off selling books.
Most people don't realize that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not how books work.
Yeah, exactly. It's so if you're looking to write one, because don't do it for the money.
Yeah.
So it's never been about the money. It's about the message behind it and the story of just being able to share it and talk about it more. And so I go back sometimes. People ask me like, "Oh, when are you going to write another book?" And I'm like, I may at some point, but I have no intention of writing another book because I don't think, this one's been out 2 years now, but I'm not done with it. I've gotten so many texts like what you sent me that night, and I'm not saying that in any way to be like, again, Lauren wrote the damn book. I can't take credit for it. I have an asterisk on my Instagram page. If you look at it, it'll say best-selling asterisk author asterisk because I, played a much smaller part than she did. So, but I just had too many people reach out and talk about the impact that the message, not my story, that the message has had on them.
Yes.
And so I don't think we're done.
Well, and I think, for me, let me first put a disclaimer out there, and I don't mean this to be a negative thing. I get sent books by people that say, "Hey, listen, I'd love to come on your show," and they'll send me a book. In your case, it didn't go down that way. Mm-hmm. I want to be very clear that we actually scheduled the podcast, and I want to say maybe we had to reschedule. I can't remember the reason.
It was April. I had just we were trying to do it live. Wasn't going to work because I was moving.
Yeah.
Then it was just getting settled in Indy, and I was like, it's going to be too crazy with the kids at home. I want to do it live.
And it happens a lot like that. Like we just finished an episode, and it happens a lot where we end up rescheduling for whatever reason. But I went ahead and bought the book, and I went out and bought it, and I thought, well, primarily why? Because it was conventional forces. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to pick up the book, and not to mention, I thought the title was cool, Legion Rising. It's a powerful thing. When I think of legions, I think of the Roman Empire and, the legions and stuff. And when I first started reading the book, I didn't know what to expect. By the time I was halfway through, I thought, I can't put this book down. And when I was done, I sat there on the beach, and thank God I had sunglasses on, and there was nobody really around at that moment. But I just looked over at my wife when she finally sat down, and I go, wow, that was powerful. So
thank you.
I think you have created something that if more people will read the message that you tried to convey in here of not there I was, but more of, there is like this poem, you're only defeated if you think you are. You can be as strong as you want to be if you set your mind to it. And it's a powerful message, I think, through the book.
Yeah, well, thank you for the kind words. We talked earlier. I'm still, even though it's been out 2 years, I had
to monograph it, and that was an awkward moment for him.
Yeah, I'm still not used to that. But it's, and again, back to what I said earlier, like it's almost in a way surreal. Like to me, that's my life. That's what I know, and to me, that's normal. But again, define normal. And so the idea, and it's taken a little bit for me, and I did a horrible job marketing it up front. To me, it was just, I thought it was going to come out and 50 friends and family, I could guilt into buying it, but hey, I did it. I got it out, told the story. My kids can read it one day and think their old man's not, quite the nerd we think he is. But and as it's grown to get the opportunity and, to talk about it more and just to hear like just messages I get from people, it's so powerful, and it fuels me to want to do it more.
You didn't. That's what's cool about this, Jeff, is that you didn't go out seeking fame, seeking that, and it just kind of came. It was fluid, like you said, when you were asked to speak. It wasn't, hey, look at me, we're creating this workout, and it wasn't to create this new. It just organically happened.
It did, and I think that's been. I am the first to realize that I am spectacularly average, but I, like a lot of people, I am been surrounded by other average people, other exceptional people. But the differentiator is that put together in this incredible, unique circumstance that just created this. I don't know what this. Define what is Legion, and it's hard for me to. I just know that it's something special, and I think it's representative of what we all have in us and all can be. It's full of the highs, it's full of the lows. It's at the end of the day, it's special, and it's something that we should all strive for.
When you mentioned the company and nonprofit, all those types of different things, so maybe expand upon that, because people are going to hear this, they're probably going to buy the book, and they're going to want to know, okay, I want to be a part of, like you said, I want to be a part of Legion 8. You know?
So the nonprofit, I'm kind of in a state of, so again, this sort of all came together very quick, and it went from selling shirts, to fly family members in for Legion 8 events, speak at different CrossFit gyms around the country, to people wanted to donate some pretty large chunks of change and what we can do to help. Then my wife and I had 3 kids in 5 years. She did all the hard work. And then COVID happened. And part of that, it was, as I got more into the veteran nonprofit sector, I just saw that they're all great. They all have the best intentions. But there's like 400,000, something crazy. Yeah. And there's only so many funds. In a way, you almost end up kind of cannibalizing each other by going out to go for some of the funds. So I don't want to say I hit pause on Legion 8. I still would do. I couldn't travel as much because of the kids and then COVID. So the CrossFit things kind of slowed down, but it gave me a time just to, if I do this, these are my men, our boys, and it's their name and their legacy and their families, that the promise we made to them, that their name will never be forgotten. That's why every Legion 8 shirt you see outside of this one has the guys' names on it. And so when someone's wearing it, what does that mean? I mean, I got a cool picture with President Bush, and again, take politics out of it. President Bush has a Legion 8 shirt with the guy's names on it. And
that's cool.
But I just did I want to be, and if that's where we end up being like one of the other 400,000, great. But it was the impact in the non-veteran community that really got me thinking on a broader scale of how can I tie those two things together. I've spent an immense amount of time thinking about it over the last year. I haven't come up with what that's going to look like yet. There's an idea of, a lot of nonprofits partner up together. Sometimes they're usually in one particular segment. Is there a way for Legion 8 to function in a way to kind of be the hub of a wheel to kind of tie in veterans with non-veteran nonprofits for different things? Again, it's not a one-size-fits-all type deal. So again, just some of the ideas that I'm toying around with. So I say that, I really scaled back the website, just sort of there's a one-pager on there right now. It's Legion8 and the number 8.org. People want to donate money. But right now I almost felt kind of, until I clearly define what that mission and message are going to be at, I'm not going to half-ass the guys' names. I'm also not going to go out and solicit donations from people. If people want to donate to it, great, but I'm not actively doing it until I can, with more fidelity, tell people exactly what their funds will be going towards.
Yeah. So right now, though, Legion 8 workouts still continue.
Oh yeah, people still do them. I get wild. I mean, somebody sent me a picture a couple of years ago. They were at an army base in Africa, and somebody was doing Legion 8. Or it's always wild. I'll be out sometimes, and I got a bunch of Legion 8 shirts, of course, and I was at Costco one day and passed somebody, and they were just like, "Man, have you done the workout? That workout is so hard, man." Like some people say, it's like there's Murph and there's Legion 8. It's a brutal workout.
I was just getting ready. I'm going in here trying to find it.
But it's funny, how many people recognize, and it's been pretty neat to see how much it's grown.
Here it is. The Legion 8 WOD was officially created. It consisted of 8 rounds for time of 8 thrusters, 75, 55 pounds, 8 chest to bar pull-ups, 8 clapping push-ups, 8 power snatches, 75, 55 pounds, 8 knees to elbows, 8 sumo deadlift high pull, 75 to 55 pounds, 8 handstand push-ups, 8 toes to bar, then 800-meter run.
It is, getting back to, it's like practicing getting kicked in the nuts. It sucks every time.
So should we just go ahead and go get the sand and shove it down our...
That'd be a little quicker.
Is that now part of it? Have you seen the guys come walking up with the sand or anything yet? And
no, the complete different thing is now, so you see all the young kids do it, and I know this because I did it the very first time. Like the weights are really light on the weight, and so you come out, and these are like gung-ho CrossFitters too, and back in my day, I don't really do much CrossFit anymore, but like come out just on fire. I mean, I'm just going to rock the stage, boom, boom, boom. And I'm just like, I look up at the clock. I'm like, all right, 1 round every 5 minutes. And, I like do the thrusters and like, hey, thanks for coming, go by and shake some hands and, kiss babies and such. And the other guy, he'll be like 2 or 3 rounds ahead of me. And they're like, man, I'm smoking you, Jeff, whatever. And then about round 6, you just look over and they're just done. I mean, it truly is. It's a marathon type workout. A lot of people, they split it up, do it as a partner. And we tried to make it, I mean, it is CrossFit, but like people are like, well, when we RX it or scale it, you have all these CrossFit terms. What are you supposed to be? I'm like, I don't give a shit. Just do the workout. It's not about just do 8 of something. I don't care what it is. The whole theme is 8, and do it and just think about not just what these men sacrifice, but think about what this whole movement is about and how it is possible to take something bad and turn it into something good and make a meaningful and positive impact in the world.
Jeff, where can they find the book again? I'm sure it's Amazon is definitely one location. Is there?
That's the best place.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's on some other platforms. That's the cheapest. Is there?
Yeah.
And,
what's next for you, Jeff?
Next for me is there's talk of, and we'll see. I got some things to go. The book it's at a point of 2 years. It's still relative in the scheme of things. This is what other people tell me. So I've had potential talks of people have come back and like we wanted more at the end. Like, I don't know what you thought. And one of the feedbacks I've got a lot is like, they wanted more, like, it's like you went from all this stuff, like build up and all these tough things and it was sad and tough. And then you're going to make change. And then a chapter later, the book was over. They're like, we would love to see more expansion. And these are a lot of people talking about the mental health side of things of like, walk us through that process more. It's like you kind of went from up to the struggle to where, all right, I'm going to make change. All right, now the change is made. And so you think you could have an opportunity to maybe impact some others if we expand that section. And then also maybe, could find somebody, a bigger name to do the forward on it. So I've been approached about there be an idea of republishing it, going to hardback because it's, and again, I don't know enough about that world. I just know what people in that world tell me of, that it's 2 years in, the fact that it's still relative is a good thing. Now, if we can do something to really get it out there, here's some ideas we have.
I also...
So if anybody's listening or anybody, hook me up because I have no idea.
Well, I almost like the idea in some ways of it not, but I get what they're saying because I think it's sort of like, I equate it to a radio station. I may have mentioned this in the past, so forgive me for those who've heard it, but a radio station that was local here to Atlanta that initially started off and they were very, very small. And so it was just a bunch of people sitting around. They didn't honestly know what to do. They were building chemistry together and they just had good fun every morning just talking about their personal lives and everything else. And once it evolved to a radio show that had a structured show and they had caller ins and all of that kind of stuff, it didn't feel the same anymore.
And that is my worry, exactly that here and going with the smaller publisher had a little more say so, and they would come back and edits and like, no, we want to keep it. If again, play that other scenario out, you don't, or you go and add some other content. And then I don't want to end up in the same boat as what you're just talking about with the radio show. I think it's something of incredibly proud of, of what we put out there as is. But also I don't want to be naive and not at least consider there's another option to, again, you can have a great story to tell, but if you don't have people to tell it to, then, you're really not maximizing the impact it can have. And so, again, I don't know that we're going to do that for now. It's forums like this. Again, I'm incredibly appreciative with the audience that you guys have. You know, to have a regular old Army infantry captain on here sharing his story. I'm
sitting with Ranger, Mr. Ranger here, and
he looked at my
sniper extraordinaire.
He looked at my left shoulder when I came in. I saw it.
A little light over there.
Jeff, thanks so much for coming on, man. It's really our honor that you came here. Like I told you, I was a little bit of a fangirl, and after reading the book, and so appreciative of you bringing in your vulnerability to not only the show but to the book for others, because I know for a fact that when we have these types of stories, especially, it does end up resonating and making an impact with somebody out there, because we get the feedback about it. And that's when it's really special, when you can find that one and you reach that one, or you save that one. And that's when the book was powerful.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Thank you for coming on here and remaining vulnerable and, talking about the difficult topics that are within this and your challenges and stuff with life and how you came through it. I really appreciate that.
Gentlemen, my honor, and thank you. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it.